Hey guys, Sean here. Welcome to the F1 Word and to the post-quali waffle from the 2023 Singapore Grand Prix. What was that all about? What a session. What a bizarre session. If I'd have told you that was the full result on Thursday, you'd have all laughed in my face at that one. I'd have been a laughingstock. I can't even get my head around it. So much to talk about tonight. We're going to talk about Carlos Sainz, of course, who took provisional pole position. We're going to talk about Red Bull, obviously. Haas are in the mix. Liam Lawson, legend. We've all just so much to go through. And we've not even got a final grid yet because the stewards are investigating Max Verstappen for 3 things. Logan Sargent for 1, and I don't know if there are any more, but I feel like there should be after what we witnessed today. Absolute chaos. Update on Stroll as well from Aston Martin, so I'll bring you that one too. So, can't get over it. What an afternoon. Hope you're all well. Hope you enjoyed that session. Looking forward to the rest of the weekend. I know a lot of Red Bull fans probably a little bit grumpy, but hey, look, you're guaranteed a great race tomorrow now, so that's that. Not that it's not great racing anyway behind the Red Bulls, but you know what I mean. A great race for the win, hopefully. But it is Carlos Sainz. Second race in a row on pole position. It was only 2-3 weeks ago he had no podiums. He's now got 2 poles, a podium, and could be on for another one tomorrow. What an opportunity for him to get a win for Ferrari, his first since Silverstone last year. That'd be fantastic for him. So congratulations to Carlos once again. George Russell, second place. Third place for Charles Leclerc. I'll fly through the result quickly. Fourth place, Lando Norris. I should say actually 0.079 seconds. So 0.08 of a second between P1 and P3. Very close. Lando Norris a couple of tenths further back in fourth. Lewis Hamilton in fifth place. Kevin Magnussen shrugs is sixth place somehow. Fernando Alonso in seventh. Esteban Ocon eighth. Nico Hulkenberg ninth. And Liam Lawson 10th. Liam Lawson, if you haven't seen the session, by the way, spoiler alert, I've already gone through top 10, but I'm going to say anyway, the top Red Bull driver today in 10th place. Liam Lawson in an AlphaTauri. Max Verstappen only P11 and under investigation for 3 different things. Pierre Gasly in 12th place. Sergio Perez only 13th. 14th for Alexander Albon. 15th for Yuki Tsunoda. Curiously, all the Q2 knockouts, ex-Red Bull drivers, by the way. Just a little stat there. I know I'm managing most of the grid. Feels like it's ex-Red Bull drivers sometimes, but, you know, quite a weird stat that. 16th, Valtteri Bottas. 17th, Oscar Piastri. 18th, Logan Sargent. 19th, Zhou Guanyu. And 20th is Lance Stroll, who had a massive crash at the end of Q1. Some pictures a little bit later will come up on stream on the slideshowy thing that's going on. So, big crash for him. Really nasty one. Not even the wheel tethers survived the impact. It was such a massive impact. Got it all wrong. Final corner over the curb. Lost it into the wall. About a 30-minute delay, I think it was, to qualifying as well. But just a quick update on him, for anyone wondering. Aston Martin said, quote, he got out of the car unaided and was taken to the medical centre for a precautionary assessment. Lance was cleared by the on-site medical team and returned to the team at the track. The Aston Martin F1 team paid tribute to the ongoing work of the FIA and the safety measures of current F1 cars. So one of the biggest shunts we've seen in recent times, certainly in the last few races, really hefty impact and a bit of concern, but apparently Lance Stroll absolutely fine, so that's fantastic news. So should be good tomorrow to race. He's P20, but I suspect, what do we think, chat, and listening later, I suspect we're going to be hearing about a pit lane start tomorrow for Lance Stroll. I think that's pretty much nailed on. They're going to have to rebuild that car, probably new chassis. You'd argue you may as well stick an engine in a gearbox in it anyway, with him being down in 20th place, and he's probably going to get a pit lane start. So the most important thing is he's fine, but obviously, I was going to say not ideal for Lance today. that's kind of a bit of an understatement, but he's fine. So we can relax about that now. That's the good news. But big job for him tomorrow. I don't see points really, but yeah, big day. I can't get over it. I'm a little bit a loss for words, which I know, rare for me, never shuts up, but I'm at a loss for words because I can't really summarize that, because I never expected, whilst this is a circuit that Red Bull have said they were going to struggle on this year, or this was the place that was most likely to end their run of wins, even listening to that, I don't think many people believed it would not only happen, but also would happen quite as dramatically. Carlos Sainz P1, Max Verstappen P11, Sergio Perez P13. It's absolutely unbelievable, and it's not glee in my voice. I don't like seeing Red Bull down there for obvious reasons. We'll not get into that, but it's thrown up this phenomenal race tomorrow. We've got 2 Ferraris sandwiching a Mercedes. We've got Lando Norris right up there. I thought was on with a shot for pole today, but didn't quite work out. You've got Lewis Hamilton in 5th. Kevin Magnussen's in the mix. Alonso looks pretty handy this weekend. Not super quick, but pretty handy. Liam Lawson, you could argue, is a little bit out of position, although the AlphaTauri is upgraded. Nico Hulkenberg up there. That's such a great grid for tomorrow. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Is that 6, 7 teams in the top 10 again? Something like that. I mean, I can't wait for tomorrow. Tomorrow's race is going to be fantastic. But I think we'll start with the positives. We'll talk about Carlos Sainz, because he did get pole position. We've got to give him the credit for that one. His second in a row, as I've already said. If you haven't seen his onboard, for his flying lap. I watched it just before I went live over on Sky. It's such a committed lap, and it's such a good lap as well. Nice and clean, really aggressive, giving it everything. He's just absolutely full to the brim with confidence at the moment. I think that what happened in Monza has really given him not a kick up the backside, but seemed to have really put a rocket behind him almost. Not that he was having a bad season, but it's really giving him some proper confidence. And I think Ferrari and what's encouraging for Ferrari is that they were quick at Monza and they're quick here, and you're not going to get two tracks that are almost polar opposites like you will with Monza and Singapore. So they clearly got a quick car on multiple tracks, which is great news for the rest of this season. But more importantly for hopefully next season. Hopefully we'll get a really good title fight between Ferrari and Red Bull. That'd be amazing. Throw Mercedes in there. Let's start dreaming. Chuck them all in there. Let's have a 10-team fight for the title. Why not? It's never going to happen. I don't think it ever has, so it's not going to happen. But just great stuff from Carlos Sainz and good stuff from Ferrari in general. Charles Leclerc seemed a little bit disappointed after the session, though. Felt he'd messed it up, he said, over team radio. Final sector wasn't great. He looked, I think he was purple, wasn't he, in the middle sector. So I think he absolutely looked like he was on for pole and then sort of missed out by a whopping 8/100ths of a second. It really has been that close. But I think one of the laps of the day today was George Russell. The reason I say that is just Mercedes looked like they had some good pace throughout the weekend, but I never felt like, probably because I expected Red Bull to turn it around and be right up there, but I didn't expect to see a Russell on the front row. Let me know if you disagree. So I think a hell of a lap from Russell there to be that close to pole position in a car that I wasn't expecting to challenge for pole position. So really good driving from him as well. It was just a really enjoyable session. There's so many positives to take from it. Of course, Lando Norris, that McLaren, that big upgrade, looks like it's working really, really nicely for them. Lewis Hamilton, top 5 again at Singapore. He'll probably be disappointed he's not a bit closer to his teammate. He's about half a second off, actually, nearly. So probably very annoyed that he's not a bit closer. But still, it's top 5. It's potentially good points. And I think Haas seem to be absolutely thrilled with where they are. So, and I can completely understand that with 6th and 9th. Where has that come from? Bearing in mind that they were, their upgrade isn't coming until, I think, Cota, is it? Austin? They're bringing their update to. And they said last week that they feel as though, or I think it was Kevin Magnussen said that they think that Williams are too far gone now in the constructors and it's going to be a miracle. What a way to respond to their own comments by doing that. So fantastic stuff. What are you saying in chat before we move on to the other stuff? Lewis says, I do disagree. Merc have been improving drastically every round. Yeah. Oh, no, I'm not saying they're not improving, Lewis. I'm not saying that at all, mate. It's just that I didn't think we were going to see Mercedes in the mix for pole today because, again, I thought that Red Bull would turn up. Bad practice sessions, disappointing. They were struggling. I thought it was going to be, think back, cast your mind back to 2020. I know it feels like forever ago, but not the year as a whole. Forget the year as a whole, just the F1 bit of 2020. 2019 is a good example as well, where you'd have these weekends where Mercedes are expected to do well and then they turn up or even expected to do badly. They turn up, they're struggling, they're not really delivering in practice, and then all of a sudden it's a front row lockout. That's kind of what I was expecting, that kind of thing today, where Red Bull have sort of been going, really struggling, we're in trouble, oh look, 1-2, never mind. That's what I was expecting because we've been here before with Mercedes and other teams as well. So that's why I feel like I wasn't expecting to see George up there. But he's had the measure of his teammate this weekend. So I'm not criticising George for a second on that one. I think it was one of the laps of the day. There you go. But let's not get back on top. Thank you very much, by the way, to Stefan for your super chat, mate. Or I think it's over on Streamlabs, isn't it? Yeah, it's on Streamlabs. Thank you. Stefan says, Sainz really delivering recently. Love to see it. Also, what an insane crash. Worst I've seen in a while. And that McLaren, ... Pause. Even as the biggest Red Bull fanboy, all I can say is finally they need to suck for a bit now. It's only fair. Thank you very much, Stefan, for your super chat and your support in general as well. It's really appreciated. And if that's the same, I assume it's the same Stefan from Discord. I will have a look at your message a little bit later after the stream. I didn't see your DM, so I'll have a look and we'll have a chat later. But yeah, no, I think a lot of Red Bull fans will appreciate why there'll be people even Red Bull fans like Stefan saying, finally, we're going to get a race at the front tomorrow. But in the same way that, they will have felt while Mercedes is dominating, when are we going to have a weekend where they struggle so we get some battling at the front? Like I say, the racing in behind Red Bull this season, if you've been paying attention, has been fantastic. But to have that kind of battling for pole and the win, it could be a thriller tomorrow. It could also be incredibly dull. Carlos Sainz could also disappear with it. It'd be really boring. But I'm just making the point that it's nice to see a battle. And even with the problems they've had, they're going to work on the car overnight. But even with the problems they've had, you can't rule out Red Bull coming back through the field and picking up some decent points. I mean, Max has ruled out the win. Christian Horner seems to be saying the same. Perez seems to have pretty much ruled out a podium. So they're talking about points. But it's Singapore. You know, I'm not going to try and make any predictions on crashes, but, you know, turn one, we saw with Vettel, Raikkonen and Verstappen. Could we see something like that with the two Ferraris and George Russell this year? Just to make the point. All of a sudden, that's 3 cars out the way, and that's the Red Bulls moving up, and, you know, a mistake in a pit stop for Lando Norris, and suddenly Lewis Hamilton moves up, and then the Red Bulls... You know what I'm getting at. You never know on a street track what is going to happen. As Jolyon Palmer would say, you always have to be alert on a street circuit. So it could happen. It could happen. Crashgate 2.0, exactly, Louis. You never know. We could. I hope not. I hope not. But yes, that's what I'm thinking. It could go either way when it comes to Red Bull tomorrow. They could storm through the field. They could just sort of stagnate where they are a little bit and pick up tail end points. That seems to be the noises they're making, though. So I mean, what's going on with them is the big question. I've not seen Ted's notebook, unfortunately, because I needed to go live at 4:30. So I did go live at 4:30, and obviously with the session Q2 being delayed because of Stroll's crash, I've not been able to see that. So I've only been able to go off what the drivers have said in the pen, which is probably a more accurate thing anyway, in some ways. So I'll just check the investigations, actually, because I don't know when they're going to come in. I know Verstappen and co have left the steward's office, so we should hear, or steward's room, I suppose they call it. No, we should hear something very, very soon. But Max Verstappen, where are my notes? I've lost my notes. Where's it gone? Max Verstappen said, observations, car is sliding, front end doesn't seem to be working. Martin Brundle actually said in commentary, it looks like the worst car on the track, a total handful. Max said bottoming out in braking zones, sliding, no traction. Like I say, ruled out the win tomorrow. Horner also said oversteer, understeer, unable to get the tyres in the right window. They reverted to the setup and car from Monza and Zandvoort overnight. So this is the same car they were running that won in Zandvoort and won in Monza, but it's just not working for them this weekend. So like I say, bottoming out in braking zones, sliding, no traction, oversteer, understeer, unable to get the tyres in the right window. You're not going to have a good day. It's as simple as that. That's a lot of things. If one of those things is off, you're probably going to struggle with all of that together. It's been a nightmare, and to have both of them out in Q2, knocked out, by the way, by Liam Lawson. So as I joked with Will on Twitter, that's his career over at Red Bull. Knocking out Max Verstappen from Q3. That's a joke. Perez also had a spin, which didn't help. He had a spin, I think it was turn 3, said in his post-race interview, massive over-delivery from the engine, car kicked and he lost it. So that was good. But the car's just terrible. If you sat on board through the Sky thing or on F1 TV or whatever and you've watched that car, it looks awful. I'm not sure I agree with Brundle that it looks like the worst car out there. I think there are other cars that don't look great, but it's certainly one of the worst. It looks horrible. But the way things go sometimes, you've got a car that can be brilliant in Monza or brilliant at Zandvoort or brilliant at Spa, could be crap at Singapore. I mean, they were concerned about Monaco, weren't they, earlier in the year? So they street tracks are obviously what they're worried about. But then you've got Suzuka next week. It is a big aero track, but maybe with some of the bigger runs there, they might be okay. Lots of different tracks coming up. They're going to have ups and downs. So in the grand scheme of things, in terms of, and I'm thinking championships here, it doesn't matter. They're still going to win both championships. In terms of the rest of this season and more importantly, the rest of this weekend, it is a big concern and they will be worried. And there's not really a lot they can do overnight unless they decide to make massive changes and start from the pit lane tomorrow, which Max Verstappen, he didn't allude to that, but he did say that it doesn't really matter whether they start 11th, 15th or at the back of the grid. So I wonder if maybe there's a thinking here that if he ends up with a penalty and he's a bit further down, that maybe they are thinking, let's take the car to bits and start again and have a brand new, that's speculation, obviously, a brand new one tomorrow. It'd be a big gamble, but if you're sort of 11th place, championships are won anyway, do you take that risk? Maybe. The difference is so big, something must be very wrong, says MGC7199. Rain Ninja says, I think it's the floor edges. Well, Ted had something to say about that, actually, in the qualifying coverage on Sky, if you didn't catch it. I didn't quite get it all, but he was talking about how he doesn't think that, because sort of to build on your point, really, Rain Ninja, a lot of people will talk about technical directive and has that affected them? The is it 18 or I can't remember what number it is, but yeah, the technical directive that's been issued about flexi wings and such. He doesn't think it's anything to do with that. He thinks it could be, as Rain Ninja is pointing at, a floor thing, because they went from the new floor they bought this weekend to the old one between FP. It was overnight, wasn't it? Between FP2 and FP3. So they obviously feel that floor is not doing what they want it to do. So they reverted to the old spec, but it's not really made any difference. And I think I might be making this up, but I think I heard Max say something along the lines of, we've gone back and that's just reset it, and we're it's sort of made it worse almost. So I don't know what's going on there, but the floor not work. It's the first time that we've seen an upgrade come to the Red Bull that they're not sure about, and maybe it wasn't the best track to bring it to, because it's quite a bit not. It's a bit like Monaco in a sense. It's very specific Singapore, isn't it? Suzuka's a bit more of a proper race track, so maybe bringing it there would have made more sense. But then what have they got to lose whenever they bring it, really? I mean, yeah, right, you might argue 11th and 13th is a disaster, but it's not going to cost them anything in the championship, is it? So I guess that's my point, really. Jonty says, fun fact, the 2017 start crash also took place on the 17th of September, not foreshadowing or anything, ... Jonty just always crops up with that kind of stuff, and it makes you go, interesting. There you go. Of course, we all know that if it does happen, we will need to only tweet and discuss the factual statement of events. We can't go speculating, so we'll see what happens tomorrow. That's probably one of the greatest tweets Ferrari has ever put out. They've come, just random point now, they've come a long way, Ferrari. I've said this before. Once upon a time, that's the sort of thing they were tweeting, and now they're actually memeing with everybody else, which is crazy. They've come a long way of Ferrari, and it's good to see. And Fred Vasseur after the session looked very, very happy. But just on Red Bull again, I don't know what's going on. I don't think any of us do, because frankly, I don't think they do. So what chance have we got if they're struggling to work it out? But the car just looks awful to drive. It's not where they want it to be, clearly, obviously, Sean, obvious statement alert. And the drivers are pretty much ruling out podiums and wins tomorrow, and we'll see what happens with penalties and whether they decide to do, maybe it's an opportunity to change the engine and gearbox and try and find a solution to give them a chance. But 11th place, you've got a shot at points. 20th, you might struggle. So we'll see what they decide to do, but I'd be surprised if they win tomorrow. But at the same time, if I'm being honest, I also wouldn't be surprised if I'm sat here in 24 hours' time talking about one of Max Verstappen's best drives through the field that we've ever seen. Because you just never know, do you, with Max Verstappen and Red Bull? We know they're better on a Sunday generally than on a Saturday, but that's a big leap. You never know. Although MGC does say if it rains, there's still a chance, of course. That kind of is another one to throw in there, isn't it? With crashes, safety cars, the weather could be a factor because it's still lingering around, isn't it? The weather. So something might happen tomorrow to help Red Bull. I always try and balance these. Let's talk about the negative, but I always try and balance it for the Red Bull fans out there to try and give them some positivity, some hope that it may happen. But it's a street track. It's tricky to overtake around. They don't seem to have the performance advantage they've had at other tracks, so it's not going to be a case of cruising through the field like we've seen this season. So I'd be very surprised to see them win. But stranger things have happened in Formula One. Definitely. But yeah. Shocking for Red Bull, great for Ferrari. Really impressed with George Russell today as well, which, given that I like to have a good moan about George Russell from time to time. And one day I will tell you a story, but I might do it today. We'll see how I feel tomorrow, but at some point I will, because there's some stuff I'd love to say about George that'll sound really awful, but it's not. It's just a bit tongue-in-cheek. We'll do that a bit later maybe. But yeah, Lando Norris as well, like I say. Look at the top 10 really, specifically. I've got to talk about Liam Lawson while we're talking Red Bull as well, because, obviously. But into Q3 in his third weekend. Out-qualified his teammate, Yuki, who, by the way, prior to that, looked pretty rapid. He topped Q1, I believe. So he looked pacey today, did Tsunoda, but didn't really come off in the end. But out-qualified his teammate, made the top 10, only his third Grand Prix weekend, and his first visit to Singapore. That's fantastic. Obviously, not ideal for Red Bull that this young lad's come in and knocked Max Verstappen out of the top 10, but it's all credit to Liam. I mean, what did he do? What was he in the end? He did a 32-1. So he was... So 32-1... Whoa, that's close, actually. 32-166 versus 32-173. So nothing in it. Thousandths of a second between Liam Lawson and Max Verstappen. But what a lap that was to put that together. On a track he doesn't really know. First time there. Difficult track as well. Great stuff from Liam to be top 10. And he's got a shot at points tomorrow. All those things I said about Red Bull having a chance of coming through if there's some drama, Liam's got to keep himself out of trouble. Tricky when you're right in the middle of the pack, of course it is, but he's got to keep himself out of trouble, keep it clean, get that car home. I kind of feel like we're still at this point with Liam Lawson, that whilst he's deputising for Ricciardo, his end goal has got to be to get the car to the finish without incident. And if he can do that, he's got an opportunity to score some points tomorrow because of where he is. So I think that would be incredible for him. I think we're getting a bit ahead of ourselves. I think there are still drivers who are going to come through the field. The point, look, I'm trying to be nice to Liam here. He's got Max Verstappen right behind him. I don't expect him to be not allowed to stay there, but I don't suspect that he'll be staying there if it's a fight with Max Verstappen for the point, because I think that's going to go one way and one way only. But, you know, bit of chaos, bit of drama. He's got a shot of points. I don't want to do what I did with... I asked this question with Alex Albon the other week. I did a poll about, can Alex Albon hang on to the top 10? Where will he finish? Will he score points? I don't want to do the same with Liam because I got a load of grief last time I did it. And it's like, it's just a simple question, guys. Chill out. But, yeah. Do you know what, Max? Max Flashheart. Great name, by the way. I nearly did a quote. I won't. That's exactly what it felt like from Liam Lawson. A statement. That felt like a statement from Liam Lawson. Absolutely brilliant lap. Again, track he doesn't know. First time there. Superb driving. Knocks Max out of Q. Obviously, he doesn't know he's doing that, but knocks Max out of Q3. Top 10 starts. That's what you need to be doing. And that's more... No, forget that. That's more than he needs to be doing. And yes, I know I'm a bit biased when it comes to Liam, but I'm still going to give him the credit he deserves. I will critique him and criticise him when he gets it all wrong. He'll make mistakes. It will come. But I think 3 weekends in so far, a race to go to complete that weekend. If he keeps it clean tomorrow, does a solid job, I think it's going to be very difficult for AlphaTauri not to be, or Red Bull not to be looking at putting him in that car next year. A lot of talk, actually, very quickly. Very quickly. We'll do some speculation because I'm sure you've got some questions on driver lineups. We always like to talk about driver lineups later in the stream, but so I'll do some Q&A. But I just want to say that a lot of talk this weekend about actually it being Ricciardo and Lawson at AlphaTauri next year, and Tsunoda's going to lose his seat and go and take on a reserve role at Red Bull, which is a little bit of a surprise to me in some ways, because Helmut Marko has been absolutely, trying to think of a really cool way to say, or a nicer way of saying, bigging up Yuki Tsunoda this year. Talk about how great his performances have been. So it's quite surprising to me that all of a sudden Tsunoda's now the one at risk. Because as much as, you know, and a lot of people, there are people who don't like Daniel Ricciardo. I don't know how you don't like Daniel Ricciardo. He just seems like a genuinely lovely guy. And he's a very quick guy. But I think if I'm AlphaTauri and I'm picking a lineup for next year and Lawson does do what I need him to do, I'm probably looking at Tsunoda and Lawson. If Liam doesn't do that, then I'm looking at Ricciardo and Tsunoda. But I guess there is the argument that Tsunoda is, as a few people pointed out to me before, or worded it in this way, more of a Honda junior than a Red Bull junior. So maybe, you know, that they feel like Ricciardo with the Red Bull links and Liam actually being a Red Bull junior, maybe they're thinking that's the way they want to go. Some big experience versus a really young, inexperienced driver. Maybe that's what they're thinking. Or maybe they just want Ricciardo there because they do see him as quite a marketable guy who will really help with this big relaunch, which, by the way, if they're not going with Toro Rosso, and they are going with the Hugo Boss thing, I'll reiterate my point again. For the off chance that anybody's listening at AlphaTauri, this is the best opportunity for you to rename your team Toro Bosso, and I'll be very disappointed if you don't do that. So Toro Bosso, please. With some livery similar to the lovely blue and the red that you had a few years ago. So Toro Bosso only. But yeah, really difficult. The thing with Tsunoda, though, as well, is... What was his name? What's his name? Franz Tost, that was the one. Said 3 years is what he thinks a new driver needs in Formula 1, a rookie, to really learn everything, learn the circuits, get to grips with the car, get to grips with the sport, and then start delivering. That's what he said. This is Yuki's 3rd season, and he's doing a good job. But is he the driver they see as most likely or in with a shot at replacing potentially Sergio Perez for the 2025 season? If they don't, and they think Ricciardo or Lawson are more likely, it needs to be Ricciardo and Lawson next season, because there's no point, purely from a Red Bull junior team point of view, there is no point keeping Yuki Tsunoda for another season if you're just going to throw him away at the end of 2024 anyway. You may as well let him go. Either put him in a reserve role at Red Bull or let him go and try and sign maybe as a reserve at Aston Martin, with the rumours that he might go there when Honda come in, or maybe there's a seat at Williams potentially with Sargent or somewhere else. I don't want to see Tsunoda go. I think he's done okay. I think he's done enough to earn another season at that team. A bit like I said about Zhou Guanyu. They might not be the best drivers on the grid. They might not be setting the world alight in the case of Zhou, but they've both done enough for me to have earned another season where they are. However, AlphaTauri don't operate like that. They're looking at what they can do for Red Bull, aren't they, with their drivers? So, but we'll do a proper speculation when we get a bit more info on that. But I'm not sure what's going on with that really. But yeah, maybe Yuki to Williams. I think I agree with Max. That would be a really great lineup, and it's X. The Red Bull, they could read those as Red Bull rejects Williams or something like that. I don't know. Rejects is harsh, but you know my point. But back to qualifying. Yes, although Tsunoda today only did qualify 15th, his teammate outdoing him pretty comprehensively in the end. Did we get anything on Yuki actually? Was there a reason for that? Did he have traffic or anything mental like that? I've seen a super chat. I'll come to that in just a second. Thank you for reminding me. Oh, it's from PayPal. Thank you, Stefan. That's very, very kind of you. Pay some bills. No, I'm joking. Not quite that bad just yet. Oh, it doesn't show. Oh, hang on. Sorry. It doesn't show the message there. I have to go to Streamlabs. Stefan, thank you again very much, mate, for your second super chat. Says, forgot Streamlabs was in GBP. Was meant to be 55 for the science poll. Let's try again. Also, I hope Streamlabs is taking less of a cut than YouTube. Thank you very much, mate, for your support and your super chats. And to confirm, PayPal does take less of a cut. I think YouTube still takes 30%. So you send me £10, I get 7. Was that right? Yeah. So I get 70%. Streamlabs, I think if it takes anything, it's like 1%. Patreon takes very little as well. And PayPal doesn't take anything as far as I know, or it takes maybe a little bit if they need to convert it to another currency. But yeah, that's just for anybody interested. There you go. Thank you very much, mate. Really appreciate your super chats today and your support. But yes, great stuff from... I was looking for a press release for Tsunoda to see if he'd had anything there about incidents or traffic or anything, but let me know, chat. Was there anything on Tsunoda? You've got some comments in there. I'll have a look in just a sec. Tsunoda went deep somewhere around turn 16, I think, in Q2, says Adash. So it's a Tsunoda mistake. Is that what we're thinking? First one in Q3 impeded. Second, Yuki was on a good first and second sector, then he was out of it. Nothing on the F1 TV commentary why. So he had no real run in Q3. So yeah, so we've got a couple of things there. So Tsunoda deep into turn 16, apparently. Yeah, so if it's his mistake, then there's nothing there. But I didn't know if he had traffic, because traffic was a real issue today, and it was absolute chaos. Yes, very, very weird. And Rain Ninja says, oh my God, are people really throwing the RB19 under the bus that quickly? Yes, mate. It's the internet, I'm afraid. It's the internet. Red Bull will have one bad weekend and that's season over. They'll just get over the line with the championships, and next year they're going to be the 5th fastest team, and Max is washed. You get all sorts of nonsense. like I said, it's one weekend. You can't read too much into it. They could come back in Japan and be a second lap quicker than everybody else. I don't know if they will be, but they could be. This is one weekend. They've got a great team. You don't build a car like that and not know how to try and find a way around it. They've got a week to Japan. If tomorrow is terrible, they can focus on Japan, get whatever problems are sorted, get any problems they have sorted, and then probably back next weekend. If it carries on in Japan because they haven't got enough time to fix it, guess what? There's a break before Qatar, then there's another break before another 3 races. So they'll sort it. This isn't the end of the RB19 domination. This is the same as, like I said earlier, this is the same as when Mercedes had their weekends where they fell away, where everyone gets excited and starts calling Mercedes a load of crap, and that Lewis Hamilton's the worst driver everyone's ever seen all of a sudden, and actually it turns out that it's still just as dominant. They just had a bad weekend, which every team's going to have. This is why, when we've talked about this, about can Max Verstappen and Sergio Perez help Red Bull to take every single win in the season, I've always said it's possible, but there are too many variables. This weekend, we've seen it's all gone wrong for them. Even if it hadn't this weekend, you never know what the weather's going to do at Suzuka. That could be chaos. Qatar's a bit of an outlier this season because it's only the second time we've been there. We don't know what's going to happen in Vegas. Interlagos is almost literally a lottery. It's not impossible to win every race in the season, and they had the opportunity. It doesn't look like it's going to happen, but long day tomorrow, of course, long race tomorrow. Generally, Singapore is usually about the full 2 hours, isn't it? So it's a long one tomorrow. So yeah, it's write them off at your peril. If you're one of the kind of people out there that like the idea of calling this as the end, then brace yourself because they'll be back. And that'll get clipped up really badly if they're now terrible. But you get my point. Teams have bogey tracks, and this could be the one for this car. Or cars have bogey tracks. This could be the one for that car. But enough about Red Bull. I know it's one of the big talking points of the day. Lance Stroll. We did talk about him at the start. Massive crash. He is okay. If you're just tuning in, he's okay. I'll read you the statement again from Aston Martin. They said Lance got out of the car unaided and was taken to the medical centre for a precautionary assessment. Lance was cleared by the on-site medical team and returned to the team at the track. So he's back with the team. Everything's fine. He's been checked. Obviously, hitting the wall at that, it triggers the medical car immediately, and he's got to go to the medical centre because of the forces involved. But he is absolutely fine. Probably a bit winded, I'd imagine. A bit shaken, but he's okay. It'll be P20 tomorrow, and as I've already said, I think it will be a pit lane start because that car's going to need a lot of repairing. Still waiting, by the way, on the investigations. So Sargent is under investigation for impeding Stroll. Verstappen for alleged impeding at the pit exit, which I don't think anything's going to happen with because, as Ted Kravitz said in commentary, if you give Max Verstappen a penalty there, you've got to give it to everybody every single time it happens because it happens all the time. However, he's also under investigation for impeding Sargent between turns 17 and 18, which again, I think I wouldn't give a penalty for that. I think he'll be okay there because that whole, all of that between turns 17 and 18 was a massive fustercluck, wasn't it? If you watched it, it was just an absolute mess. You had Ferraris and a Mercedes in there. You had an Alpine. You had Verstappen having to go slow because of those in front of him. You had cars overtaking that were trying to get position. You had faster cars coming through. There's a narrow scrape, I think, from Mercedes against a wall. But I'm quite surprised, actually, looking at the FIA feed, that Max Verstappen is the only one under investigation for what happened there. Now, I don't know who was on fast laps and who wasn't. It may well be that everybody was on a slow lap apart from Sargent, in which case, and I get it, but there was a Mercedes came flying down the outside and sort of brushed the wall almost, going around the outside of a Ferrari. So if that Mercedes was on a hot lap, the Ferrari needs a penalty. So I don't know what's really going on there. It's stupid. It's chaos. It's F1. Best drivers in the world, and they seem to squabble over the same piece of tarmac and can't seem to make enough space, despite the track being all right, a little bit shorter, but still nearly 5 kilometres long. Do you know what I mean? Absolutely crazy. There's a Tsunoda one as well. It's just coming to that one. He's also an investigation for impeding Tsunoda, which Horner said he felt there was enough space down the inside for Max to make the move. I think out of all of those that he's under investigation for, that is the one he's most likely to get a penalty for. We'll see what the stewards decide, obviously, and we're still waiting on Sargent, which I think Sargent on Stroll looked quite close to a penalty as well. If I recall, it was ages ago, wasn't it? Q1, so we'll see what happens. But overall, crazy session, great fun to watch. Really pleased that Sainz seems to have really got some confidence. Really pleased Lance Stroll's okay. And I think we're in for a cracking race tomorrow, because even if, let's just play devil's advocate a bit here. Even if Red Bull have got a car tomorrow that is astronomically quick and it was all set up for the race and it's all part of the plan to be quicker on race day, but it just went a little bit wrong or very wrong because they went too far towards the race and not qualifying. I don't think that is the case, by the way, but let's say it is. We've still got 2 Red Bulls coming through the field, which is going to be chaos and a lot of fun. So, but I think we're in for a great race, and I'm not sure. Let me know in chat. I will take your questions shortly on qualifying. We always do that. I give a few thoughts on it, waffle for a bit, which is the point of these, and then you guys can ask me some questions on things that I've missed, and I'll let you know when the stewards' decisions are in. But who do you think is going to win tomorrow? Let me know in chat with a surname. I will read a few out. I think it's a tough one to call. Sorry, I just got to Twitter to check things. Reese. F1 fan 4423. I can't see the rest of your name there, but Reese, I think, is a Lewis Hamilton fan, possibly. Says, if anyone wants to listen to a man waffle about F1, then F1 Word is the place to go. But in all seriousness, his content is top tier, and having watched his content since 2017, I think I can say that. Thank you very much, mate, for that. That's a really lovely tweet. I need that at the minute. I need things like that at the minute. That, not to say that other people don't appreciate the content, but it's been tough. I can't do it. I was going to do a poll, Klein, but I can't do a poll because I've got. I think this is one of those instances where Sainz, Russell, Leclerc could win. I think Norris has got a shot in that McLaren. Anything could happen. Who knows? From 5th place for Lewis Hamilton, we might even get some chaos with a I can only put 4 names down, and I think there's potentially 5 or 6 drivers in with a shot of the win tomorrow. It feels that close. It may not be. Like I said earlier in the stream, it may well be that Sainz disappears with it. It may also be that Nico Hulkenberg pulls off the biggest surprise in F1 history, in recent F1 history. But on Nico Hulkenberg, I'd love him to win because it sounds terrible, but I mean it in the nicest possible way. Nico Hulkenberg cannot seem to get a podium for love nor money. I would love him if he only ever gets 1 podium in his career. I would love that to be a win. So Nico Hulkenberg becomes one of those drivers who has 1 podium, and that was with a win. That'd be quite an incredible thing. So you never know. You never know. It's Singapore as well. I don't think he will. I think he'd need absolute chaos for it to happen, but it's Singapore. It can throw up really mediocre races. It can throw up utter chaos as well. So Nizam says Sainz will win. MGC says Norris, ? I'll come back to you in a second, Mickey. Janny says Hulkenberg. Max says Lando. Abhinav says Hamilton if he turns on. Arshad says George because Ferrari is going to Ferrari. That's a good point, actually. We're relying on Ferrari delivering, aren't we? So we'll see. James Rich says it's Singapore, so probably burnt Mylander. Fair point. Lewis is calling a Hamilton victory. Sainz and Russell will get team orders. Okay. And Leclerc will get Ferrari'd in the pit lane. Fair enough. Heavy Duty Mayo says Alvin win. Space Mountain says Hulkenberg, baby. Patrick says Alonso if he gets a mega start. I've got Alonso as a pick for a podium on my Thursday predictions, but I also picked Perez for the win and Verstappen second, so I think I'm going to be losing some points this weekend. Not that I've done very well in predictions this year, which I know is going to come as a massive shock to many of you. Max wins for the pit lane, says Cafe 88 Racer. You never know, do you? That car, depends what car turns up tomorrow, I guess. Adash says Russell. Apologies for butchering names, you know what I'm like. Michael says Russell. Charles, of course, says Stoff will win. Of course he will. We know that one. Robert says I'm going to go with Max to win. Team Red Bull and Max will pull it off. Yeah. Klein says Max. Yeah, my eyesight is terrible today. Says Max. Lee says Stroll helped by Alonso crash. Cheeky. Lawson wins, says Lebox, and Vest says, don't know if he wins, but Lewis will somehow be ahead of Russell at the end, like has happened many times this year. Thank you very much for your guesses there. Thank you to Sujith as well for your super chat. Says Singapore 2013. Kimi Raikkonen starts 13th and finishes 3rd with a bad back. A safety car can change everything. There you go. Sujith coming in. Just giving us all a reminder. Again, anything can happen in Formula One, and it usually does, as Murray Walker used to say. Bless him. So, if you've got any questions about qualifying, I'll come to you in chat. We'll sort of have a nice little interactive 45 minutes now, I think would be. I wanted to do about half the stream on Waffle and then half of it talking about the weekend as a whole. We'll look ahead to tomorrow a bit more as well while we're doing this. So questions about the race tomorrow, questions about qualifying are preferred. If you have questions about F1 in general, I'm happy to answer them, but I prefer to try and keep it initially for the first few minutes of Q&A to this weekend as a whole. And anybody you want me to talk about from qualifying that is worth talking about that I've not mentioned, let me know. Happy to do that one. Great question from MGC. What's the weather looking like tomorrow? That's a great way to start this. Let's have a look. So, Marina Bay Street Circuit weather. Still there from the preview. Ooh, wet. It's 8 o'clock local time, isn't it, the race? So, it's going to rain pretty much or a good chance, 45% chance of any rain falling from about 7 a.m. until 4 p.m. Then it starts to fall away again. So all that rubber is going to be washed away. So that's an interesting one for tomorrow. So that should make the track nice and green, which is, if you can't have a wet race, we've had a lot of wet races this year, so I'm fine if we don't. But if you don't have a wet race, a green track because of rain overnight and during the day is actually the next best thing. So there you go. That could spice things up. But in terms of the race itself, it's lights out at 8 p.m. and it is, that's local time. Obviously, it's 1 p.m. in the UK, so a little bit earlier tomorrow for the reaction. 24% chance of any rain falling according to this weather forecast. I won't go and get... I usually have 4 forecasts when I do the previews. I'm not going to get them all. So that's the weather forecast for from this one on Google. So 24% chance of rain, but it's going to be hot, I think. Well, I'm going to say hot and then say 29 degrees. You don't need to pop in the chat in the comments later and go, 29 degrees isn't hot at all. It's 45 degrees here in the middle of the night. I'm aware that 29 degrees isn't hot for a lot of places in the world. For me, that is around about 20 degrees hotter than I like it, so that's hot to me. So just to clear that up. So 24% chance of rain, 29 degrees. Even if the rain comes, it's going to dry up pretty swiftly. So, but yeah, it's not looking likely, but it's going to rain overnight, so that should make the track nice and green. I think I've got... Oh, there's a new thing. What's that on YouTube? A new thing. Okay, fair enough. So don't lose me super chats. Thank you, YouTube. That's very, very kind. Now we have done weather. How many tyre compounds are there going to be tomorrow? Says Warden. 3 available, of course. 3 tyre compounds. Oh, tyre talk. Oh, there's going to be some disappointment at the end of this year. But tyre talk, yes. 3 tyre. It's the C3, C4, C5 softest compounds. Have Pirelli put their list out, actually, of what everyone's got left? They usually do it on a Sunday morning, I believe, so they might not. Let's have a look at Pirelli. Nope, let's not read that one out. Pirelli, there we go. No, they have not. So it's usually tomorrow morning they do that, but they have done a graphic on something. So, yeah. Best time by compound so far. Lando Norris on the hards, 34.5. Charles Leclerc on the mediums, 32.9. And Carlos Sainz on the softs, 30.9. So, obviously different conditions. We can't really read into that, but that's quite a big gap between tyres there. But again, I'm not going to read into that too much. But just for those who would like to know, I saw something else earlier, actually, what the difference was between Tsunoda and Lawson's fastest time. So, Tsunoda did a 31.9 in Q1. Didn't do a time in Q2. He wasn't knocked out in Q1, so he didn't do a time in Q2. So Yuki must have had some sort of problem, because according to the F1 graphic, he didn't do a time in Q2. Let me get the timing on. I did screenshot that just in case. It doesn't say. Really helpful. Thank you, F1. Yeah, no, so he didn't do a time, apparently. So I don't know if there's an issue. I just checked the FIA official one, because I thought... Because he came in the pits, didn't he? I saw him come in the pit lane at the end of a lap. So whether he had an issue, I'll look for his press release in a minute. But Tsunoda officially DNF'd Q2. So something's happened there to Tsunoda in Q2. So I'll have a look for that in a bit, see if there's anything on press releases. But that's interesting. But in terms of lap time, so his fastest time in Q1 was a 31.9. Lawson's was a 32.2, so that's 0.3 between them. Lawson's fastest of the day was 32.2, so that's 0.6 between them, but no, it isn't. Yuki was still 0.3 quicker than Lawson in Q1 and with the Q1 time for Q3 despite the track evolution. So Yuki's not slow. It's just not really worked for him today. So Yuki lost his front tyres. Yeah, no, he had an incident. Thank you, Nikolai. I know he had an incident. I don't know why he didn't come back out again. Whether he wasted a set of tyres, maybe. Was that the issue? Got impeded by Max at turn 2, says Thomas as well. Thank you very much, mate. So, yeah, that's an issue there too. I'm just surprised he hasn't gone out again. So whether he just, obviously the lockup, I suppose, knackers your tyres, and then if you're impeded as well, I suppose that's it, isn't it? That's possibly your tyres gone, so that's maybe why. Please do drop a like on the stream, by the way. 353 of you here, 70 likes. Please do drop a like. Always appreciated. Don't forget to subscribe as well. Live again tomorrow night with the race reaction as well. Thank you to Aman Singh for your sub. Just spotted you pop up on screen there. Appreciate that one. Your support and everything as well is appreciated. Who is on the clean side and who is on the inner line in tomorrow's race for turn 1? So Sainz will be on the clean side, won't he? Is Pole on the outside in Singapore? I think so, yeah. And then Russell's. So it's your odds are clean, your evens are inner line. I'll double check it. I'm pretty sure that's correct in Singapore. I know tracks can vary, but it's always odd to me that the pole isn't always. Well, it generally is, isn't it? There are occasions where we've had it in the past where the pole hasn't been on the racing line. Some quite famous moments, actually, but generally the way it goes now. But I think I saw the graphics. So, although the F1 graphic says pole is on the left from the driver's perspective, but I'm sure it's... That's weird. I'm probably just absolutely having a moment, and I've probably read it completely wrong. Please don't play the audio because I'll get copyright struck badly. No news yet, Formula 1 fan, on the Verstappen penalties. As soon as they come in, I will let you know. I've got the FIA feed open, so we should have some news there. Oh, no. Yeah, because Leclerc was on... Yeah, the pole is on the outside. Yeah, so it's odds on the outside, evens on the inside. There we go. Just watching last year's highlights to make sure that I got that one right. Because it was Leclerc on pole last year, wasn't it? So, Giancarlo Baghetti, Scarfiotti, Bonnier, Gethin, Brambilla are the drivers not included Indy 500 winners who have one podium, which is a win, says John T. There's a stat for you. Giancarlo Baghetti. Now, this is off the top of my head. Stick with me. Is Baghetti the last driver to win on their F1 debut? Giancarlo Baghetti. I'm pretty sure that's a stat I have in my head for when I inevitably win my first race on the F1 game and can do my inner monologue. I might be wrong. I'm going to go check it before anyone can get there now to make sure that I'm a genius. Don't ask me what I had for dinner last night. I couldn't tell you, but I'll tell you that. He was first win 1961 French Grand Prix, first entry 1961 French Grand Prix, last win 1961 French Grand Prix. There you go. Yeah. Will we ever see it again? Did Jacques Villeneuve get close to it, didn't he? I think, on his debut. Again, this is a thing, right? Toto Wolff, critical of Wikipedia. I don't know where I'd be without it. I have to confirm my random statements. But I seem to recall Jacques Villeneuve wasn't far off it on his F1 debut in 1996. Second place, there you go. And I think he was leading for a while, wasn't he? So it could happen one day. Unlikely, but yeah, well, I say close. He was 38 seconds off in the end. But yeah, that's probably the closest it feels for a while. Magnussen, of course, finished P2 in 2014 for McLaren, but no, wasn't anywhere near. I'm not going to read that because it's just petty and it's silly. Chance of rain during the first lap, says Alan, question mark. 24% seems to be the one there at the moment, but maybe a Zandvoort style one. Still no word on these alleged impedings and that, which is odd because I'm sure it's been a good 45 minutes since he left the stewards. 22:25 local time, which, yeah, so he should have left the stewards by now. So I don't know what they're debating here. Whether they're thinking, because it's gone midnight and we still not. Oh no, don't leave it till tomorrow, FIA, please. I'm not sitting here all night waiting. Definitely not. We'll see what happens soon. But yes, that's your random stat for today. Giancarlo Baghetti. Wolf was calling you out specifically, Sean. He watches the F1. I know he does. He must do. I hope he doesn't, because I'm not always totally complimentary about Toto Wolff. I think his comments about Max's record, and I think in his defence, he has since come out and said they were ill-advised comments. But I do, in fact, do you know? Let's do it. Why not? Let's annoy people. I think I've saved them. So obviously, you have to bear in mind that he's going to have a very different opinion of his drivers' stats than he is Max Verstappen. But he said about Max Verstappen the other week, I don't know whether he cares about the record. It's not something that would be important for me. Any of those numbers, it's for Wikipedia. Nobody reads that anyway. And on Lewis Hamilton's 100th win, I think we are witnessing of a career that is just amazing. The 100th race victory is just mind-blowing. Today we talk about it. It's going to be in the news for 24 hours, but only 20 years down the line, we're going to realise that we've been part of that. We realise that you are being part of a journey that no sportsman in the Formula One has done so far, and that is beyond the chances, the races that we've won, the championships that, I've got a whole quote there. Basically, contradicting himself. But again, that's just... Toto Wolff is always going to look more favourably at Lewis Hamilton's achievements in a Mercedes than he is at Max Verstappen's in a Red Bull, and that goes for Horner for Mercedes as well. So it's not a Toto Wolff exclusive. It just made me chuckle that the things he said about the 100th win versus, Max is not really mattering. But at the same time, he's since said that it's not. it wasn't a wise thing to say, and I don't think he meant it. I think Max pretty much hit the nail on the head. I think Toto was probably a bit pissed off at their bad weekend. Pretty disappointing race in Italy for them versus where I think they thought they were going to be. So that I tend to agree with Max. Not in an awful way. If I'm boss of Mercedes or Ferrari or I don't know, Williams, I've just come off the back of a bad race and they go, what do you think of Verstappen's achievements? I'm like, I don't give a shit. I need to get in there and do a debrief. I couldn't care less. So I don't think Toto meant anything by it, but just I like to point that out sometimes. So the moral of the story is everyone in F1 is a hypocrite, says AJ. Yes. Basically. There's people now who hate Max Verstappen dominance, but were loving it when Lewis Hamilton did it. There'll be people who hated Sebastian Vettel's dominance, but loved it when Michael Schumacher was doing it. So it's fans are hypocrites, teams are hypocrites, drivers are hypocrites. But I think without getting too deep into this, I think we're all hypocrites to a point, aren't we? But at some point in our lives, we'll all be hypocrites. So I'm not going to have a go at Toto for that. I just thought it was quite amusing. But again, you'll always speak favourably of you'll have your biases, won't you, towards your team and your drivers, and it's a nothing thing. It just made me giggle. That's all. How good is Merc race pace looking? Lewis might still get it just like he did in 2017. Asks Alan. Didn't see the race pace analysis after the session, after practice, but I think Ferrari and Red Bull were pretty evenly matched. Is what I think was the case. But I couldn't honestly tell you the answer to that. So if anybody knows, please do let me know. Lewis race pace sims are nothing crazy. There you go. I think Lando's was better. What matters more than race pace here is quali. It says fill in the blanks. Good point. A bit like Monaco, quali is the most important one. You can hold your station a bit, can't you, with a street track. Just very quickly as well, if you're on Twitter or Twitex or whatever you want to call it, give at Just F1 Car a follow, at Just F1 Car. They do some fantastic visualizations of gaps in qualifying. They've got one up at the moment, which is a picture, but they also do some really great 3D modeling of. It's a really good Twitter feed to follow, so definitely give them a go. That's at Just F1 Car. They're well worth a watch if you're not already. Not got many followers, and they do some really good stuff. So I don't know if they do stuff elsewhere, and that's maybe where, I don't know, but yeah, definitely give them a watch. Could be entertaining tomorrow, though, for the race, definitely. So get your questions in. Like I say, I'm going to come to you in chat. Yeah, basically. Ferrari burns its tyres and Merc has tyre advantage. Extra set of new mediums, says Adash. So there you go. That's a good point there on the... Like I said, I've not seen the Pirelli thing, but if there's extra mediums for Mercedes, that could help them quite a bit tomorrow. Ferrari do tend to burn it. They did in Monza, didn't they? There was some talk they won't actually be able to... they wouldn't be able to manage the tyres very well in Monza, and that might hurt them in the race, and that kind of is the way it went a little bit, wasn't it? So maybe we'll see that again tomorrow. But hot as well, really hot in Singapore for F1, humid, and it's a long old race. Anything can happen. I keep saying it. It's my line for Singapore. It's my line for most street tracks. Anything can happen. We've all got a line for street tracks. That's my line. So what did everyone else do to give Haas 2 in Q3? I think that's... Like, not to take anything away from Haas, I think that's a symptom of, and remember my feelings on Liam Lawson before you think I'm criticising him. But I feel like if Liam Lawson was P10, if Yuki had been unobstructed in whatever went on in Q2, he probably would have been up there for Q3 as well. So AlphaTauri have made a big leap forward, their big update. So that's going to have that's moved them up. So my expectation was that Haas would fall down. But I think this is all a symptom of the red flag, because you lost Lance Stroll in the accident. He may well have got through. We'll never know. Oscar Piastri, I would expect to have been up there. Actually, I'll go back to that in a second as a point to make on that one. Oscar Piastri would have been up there, so that brings them down again. You might have snuck an Alfa Romeo in, you never know. Alex Albon could have got a better lap in, probably than 14th, if Red Bull had been on the pace. Pierre Gasly, you'd have expected to be a little bit higher up there near Esteban Ocon. So actually, when you look at where the Red Bulls are, you look at where the McLaren is, and then the variables like Alpine, Alfa Romeo and Williams, then they could have been lower. So I think they've kind of benefited from some of the issues that others were having, but I don't want that to take away from what was a very, very good lap from Kevin Magnussen at the end. Only, in air quotes, 0.6 of a second off pole position in that Haas is an impressive lap. So I'm not taking it away from Haas. I'm just making the point that on a more standard day, maybe they'd have been 11th-ish, but that would still have been good qualifying for them. So, but yeah, back to the points to make on Oscar Piastri. I was watching his onboard. McLaren have said it. He said it. They think he would have got through. He had the pace to do it. Zach Brown said it as well. He was okay. His lap was good. I think he was up and he would have got through just about. But he came around that final corner just after Lance Stroll's crash and was just met with Lance Stroll in the middle of the track with his car in pieces, facing the wrong way. And as soon as he comes through there, he's got to back off anyway because of the yellows. He's got to back off because the car's there. And then, of course, the red flag came out before he went over the line. So that's why Oscar Piastri didn't make it out of Q1. So this isn't a reflection on him as a driver. I don't think anybody thinks that, but I'm just making the point just to cover that. But also, he hasn't got the update this weekend, so he was pretty close. He was pretty close to Lando once you sort of allow for that 2-3 tenths of a second to be taken off the updates, the difference in the updates. So he's been pacey this weekend, and when he gets the update, he should be back up there again. But just unfortunate with the time of the red flag. Logan Sargent had gearbox issues, he said over radio, so that's worth a note as well. Talked about Verstappen in the car. Talked about the impeding between turns 16 to 19, which was just absolute chaos. And I don't know what the solution is. We see it at every track. I don't know what the solution is, because Monza, they'd had a solution. This is your minimum lap time, and then when somebody didn't actually, which I agree with, by the way, because of the circumstances behind it, but when somebody actually went the wrong side of that minimum lap time, they didn't penalise them anyway. So it's a bit of they sort of found a solution, but then didn't do anything with it. So again, I agree with why, because they were letting faster cars through, and you've got to allow for that. Bottas says lap was good, bit of traffic at the end. Otherwise, from my side, it was okay. That was over team radio. I think I said this last week. I've started listening to the team radio feed whilst watching on TV, because you get a little bit of extra insight there from the teams. Talked about the Red Bull, talked about Liam Lawson quite a bit. Leclerc was noted for failing slow for yellow flags, by the way. Reviewed and no further investigation necessary. And that's basically it. Nothing from Ted's notebook because I didn't watch it because I was doing this one instead. So there's the last of my notes there. I'm waiting for press release. I want to hear what I'm really intrigued by Yuki Tsunoda, but I suspect that there's a lot going on here because we haven't got press releases yet, and that generally means they usually come in quite quickly. That generally means that they're all waiting to see what happens with the stewards. And we've got P3 in qualifying scrutineering, which is a very exciting document. Where they go through everything they checked and whether they complied, and everyone seemed to comply. So that is good news. So there you go. Nothing yet on the FIA decisions. I'll check Twitter actually, because sometimes you get the journalists get the news before we do through the F1 feeds or the FIA feeds. So yes, nothing. I will let you know. I'm waiting. Cranky says, "What's up with Tsunoda?" I'm just waiting to see what comes through in the press release. Hopefully that'll be okay. Adash says, "Hit the like. Let's get it past 100. Such a great waffle. I don't know why it needs so much of a push." Yeah, please do drop a like. Always appreciated. To answer the point, it's the channel in general at the moment. I think it's impacted partly because it's a reactionary channel, and we're talking about, in previews, we preview a race weekend. Obviously, I don't know why that needed explaining, but it did. We react to the race. We do the waffle afterwards as well. So if the season's not epic and people aren't enjoying it, then views and that are down. So it's it needs pushing because it's not as the channel's not as active as it should be, and it's not as popular as it once was either, just because I don't upload enough, my fault, and the season's not as thrilling as people like. So, we're not going to be pulling 2021 numbers, for example, if that makes sense. But I think it was something like 6,000 were tuning in for the Abu Dhabi 2021 reaction, which isn't a great surprise, I know. Once upon a time, we were getting 8,000 or so for streams during testing and stuff like that. So it happens. It's fine. But I appreciate the support. So likes are always appreciated. 3 more to get to 100. That would be amazing. Yinka says, sorry if you've already discussed this, but is Sainz looking like a world championship caliber driver at the moment? Oh. I mean, if you've been here a while, Yinka, you know I have quite a controversial take on world champions, in that I think we have examples in F1 history that back it up, even though people snigger it and think it's a stupid thing to say, but we have points that back it up. We have drivers who have won championships who back it up. We've seen drivers nearly win championships who back it up, but I think that most drivers are capable of winning a world championship if everything goes their way in a very specific set of circumstances. For example, and I wish I had this example earlier this year because I'd love to throw this out there, Eddie Irvine. I don't recall, and I was only young, but I don't recall people really raving about Eddie Irvine being a future world champion. However, the 1999 Ferrari was pretty decent, was a very good car, and Michael Schumacher broke his leg, and McLaren shat the bed, quite frankly. So Eddie Irvine came very close to winning the world championship. Heinz-Harald Frentzen wasn't that far away from the world championship that year. So if there are a very specific set of circumstances, your car is, in the case of, let's say you put Nico Latifi in a car that's 2 seconds a lap quicker than anybody else, with Logan Sargent alongside him, one of them's got a shot at winning the title. Again, I make the point again, it needs to be very specific set of circumstances, but there are examples of that happening in F1 where drivers have come close to winning titles, and there are examples in F1 of drivers who once upon a time were never talked about as F1 World Championship winning caliber, who won world championships or won a world championship. So it's difficult for me to sit and say Carlos Sainz is not or is world championship caliber, because if he gets a car that's massively quick, like a Mercedes 2014 rocket ship or this year's Red Bull, for example, and everything goes the way he needs it to, then of course he can win the world championship. But if we're talking, the best way to do it is to imagine everyone in equal cars, isn't it? I suppose is the point. And I think Carlos Sainz, where would I sit Carlos Sainz? I once upon a time, I would have put Carlos Sainz in a bracket with Sergio Perez as very good drivers who will have very long F1 careers, but are not on the level of not Verstappens and Hamiltons, but not on the level of drivers that you instantly look at and go, they've got a world championship in them. And if that makes sense. But at the moment, with the confidence he seems to have gained from Monza in particular, some of his performances this year, and the way he's doing versus Charles Leclerc, by the way, who a lot of people will always talk about as a future world champion, it'd be hard for me to sit here and dismiss it, because he's doing a very good job versus Charles Leclerc. He's only had one podium and he's 6 points clear of Leclerc. I know Leclerc's had some rotten luck at times, but so Sainz with strategy and things. So, we have some decisions in. We'll come back to this one. But I'm going to reiterate the point again, by the way, very, very quickly. Okay. Because I know people that don't like it as a controversial take about my world champion point. Again, very specific set of circumstances. Think Eddie Irvine 1999 is the example I give. And if you want to let me know in chat if you think there are any world champions that are examples of those who were never really talked about as championship material who did win titles, let me know. For example, I don't recall Nico Rosberg really being talked about much as a world. In fact, I think he was mocked quite a bit in his early days in F1. I don't think he was ever really talked about as a world champion, and he won a championship. It happens. So there's nothing wrong with that. I think Jody Scheckter is one that I think my dad said. I think it was my dad said that one was one that was never really bigged up and won a championship. So, it's happens in F1. Nobody rated Fernando Alonso. I'm joking. Fernando Alonso, Lewis Hamilton, Max Verstappen, drivers that have always been rated since basically birth. So there you go. But yes, a reprimand for Logan Sargent. Interesting, actually. That's an interesting. Let me read this. So, Sargent clearly impeded Lance Stroll at turn 8. However, in mitigation of penalty for the driver, the stewards considered the fact that the team made no radio communication to warn him of the approach of Stroll. It is essential, especially in qualification, drivers be given sufficient and accurate warning of the approach of another vehicle. Accordingly, and consistent with previous decisions, a fine is imposed on a competitor who admitted that it had failed to provide an appropriate warning. It is noted that the team representative of Aston Martin was not present at the time of the hearing, but did attend the stewards' room after the hearing had finished. So it's a fine of €5,000 to Williams and a reprimand, first one of the season, for Logan Sargent. A fine is imposed on a competitor, accordingly and consistent with previous decisions. I've got Sean scrolling. Is that? I'm not going to go scrolling through all these different. There's thousands of them here. I'm not going to go through all that. But is that consistent? I'm not screaming penalty. Give him a penalty. He's down in what 19th, 18th place. It's not going to destroy his weekend, whatever is it? But that doesn't. I don't seem to recall that being. I might be wrong. This is a reactionary point, but I don't seem to recall seeing many reprimands and fines for the team for failing to communicate over the radio and impeding. Usually when you see the line, in this case, Sargent clearly impeded Stroll at turn 8, that's usually a 3-place grid drop, isn't it? Interesting. So Sargent has got a reprimand and a fine for Williams. I do like the fines in Formula 1. I think isn't the pit lane speeding fine like $100 or something? I'll tell you in a minute. Carlos Sainz pit lane speeding. €100. Oh, that's gonna hurt. Yeah, I don't know. I'm not. I might be wrong. It might be that pretty much every weekend we're seeing these, but I don't recall reading that on a document for a while. But I can sort of see what they're saying with the communications. You know, if the team haven't said there's a fast car approaching, then he needs the information. It is important in qualification. And I know that the mirrors aren't always great, but he does have mirrors as well. In fact, Dell says no radio comm should not be a mitigating circumstance. If anything, it should make the offence worse. Good point. Yeah, maybe a heftier fine or a penalty for... I mean, it's not Sargent's fault that his team haven't told him, I guess. But no radio communication is potentially quite a very dangerous thing, isn't it? So I'm sure John will have something to say on radio communications and the importance of them. When it comes to safety, talk to Jonty. He will always have something to say on the FIA, their inconsistencies and safety as well. So I imagine then, if that's the Logan Sargent one through, we need to keep it very close. So I will come to your questions, probably some quick fire ones that I can answer rapidly, which I guess is what quick fire means. It doesn't need to be anything stupid, but I'll try and do it quickly, and we'll keep an eye on what's going on there. No, Sargent didn't cause Stroll's accident, no. He was impeding him at turn 8. Yeah. Does anyone know where to watch the race? Is it only on the official website for a fee, or is it there, or is there a way to see it for free? Says V. I don't know where you are. In the UK, it's obviously on Sky Sports F1, which can be quite pricey once you start adding up your packages you have to add. You can get it on Now TV, which I think works out over the course of a year a little bit cheaper. So that's an option, but again, that's going to cost you. So that's not, and there's F1 TV as well if that's available where you are, but that's also going to cost you a fee. In terms of free, I'll word this in a way that won't get me into too much trouble, but I'm sure there are some very creative ways using search engines you might be able to find a stream for free. Do you know what I do actually when it comes to the fact that in the UK, because this country is an absolute joke with things like this for some reason, you can't watch all Premier League matches like 3 o'clock kickoffs on a Saturday. You know, if I moved to Canada, I could watch every single game, for example. I think that's an option over there, but I can't here, even though it's our league. But anyway, I often search on Twitter for a stream because often you get multiple streams on there and it can work out there. So just saying, but also, I know they're clamping down on VPNs as well, aren't they? F1 TV, so that's a bit annoying for people that have invested in the VPN for that. How many safety cars tomorrow, says Adam Osborne? I'm going to go with 2. It was 2 last year, 2 virtual and 2... I'll go 1 virtual and 2 full safety cars for tomorrow, Adam. I think that's where I go with that one. One fewer overall than last year, I think is a good idea. Perez did spin. Yeah, Perez had his spin. He said, I'll tell you what he said. I think I wrote it down. I think I've read it out, haven't I? Yes, I did. So Perez said, massive over delivery from the engine, car kicked and he lost it. So, but I think with respect to Checo, if Max Verstappen isn't getting out of Q2, then even without his spin, I doubt that he was going to be doing that one. Carl just asking if we're getting rain tomorrow. 24% chance. We checked it a bit earlier, mate. 24% chance of rain falling when the race starts. 29 degrees at the moment is the high temperature. So that's what we're looking at. But yeah, difficult to get. There are a few suggestions in chat, by the way, for streams. So don't post links because that can cause issues. They get blocked. I think they get blocked anyway. So do let me know. Yes. Nothing yet on the map. It's the Max Verstappen ones I'm intrigued at here as to why they're taking quite so long to come through. But then Logan Sargent was summoned. His was sent at the same time. So I imagine we're going to get a decision pretty swiftly. I will stay live until 6 UK time, so another 20 minutes. So I can do some Q&A with you and I'll keep an eye. But after that, you'll have to keep an eye on Twitter. I've got some stuff to do tonight. So yeah. Also, can I just say, it's on screen now, the Williams livery. Stunning. Gorgeous when I saw the pictures on Thursday. Even better out on track. There it is. Beautiful car. Williams, if you want to keep that for the rest of eternity, that is absolutely fine. I actually prefer that to the McLaren one that they had in Monaco. Was it last year or year before? That was a really nice livery and I really like that and I'm happy with that as well. But if Williams want to keep this, that's absolutely fine. I know they've got it for Japan and Qatar, so... hopefully they'll keep it a little bit longer, like forever. We'll be absolutely. I know it's only a livery and it really doesn't matter. I know, but it doesn't matter. Best livery of the year, says Yinka. And I'm sorry, just on the McLaren livery as well from this weekend. They're still calling it stealth mode. It's covered in papaya, so it's not stealth. And then they send it out in practice covered in Flovis. I mean, don't call it stealth and then do that. Gulf livery also. I saw someone say, what was it? They said something like it's like MSG. Gulf is like MSG. Everything's better with it. I'm not sure what MSG's in. No, is that no, not MSG. It doesn't matter. Doesn't matter. Yeah, doesn't matter. I know what it is. Yeah. I was having a moment, an absolute brain fart there. We've done the rain one for tomorrow. Just people offering ideas for streams. We've done the safety car question. Looking for some questions that relate to the race weekend, specifically while I keep an eye on the FIA feed. I've answered that one. John T made a point about Kubica, I think. If BMW don't pull the plug in 2008, Kubica is champion, is John T's statement there. I'm not going to think I'm trying to think about that, but my point I've always made is that if I could go, if people talk about going back in time and be able to do things, if time travel was possible, I would go back to around January 2009 and I put 100 quid on Jensen Button to win the Drivers' Championship because he didn't even have a seat at that point. And then a magic new team called Brawn GP would win the Constructors' Championship. That's that and Leicester City winning the league. That's where you go and bet on if you want to make some money. Forget the lottery. That's what you do. It's much more fun that way. But yeah, probably get done for fixing. Will Haas get points? Asks Adam. Will Haas still get points tomorrow? Let's have a look. So I think even with the car being dreadful, I fully expect to see Max and Sergio Perez towards the top 6 tomorrow. Probably in the top 6. I think you're looking at Magnussen and Hulkenberg dropping down a couple of places there. I think Gasly will come through as well. I think Yuki is probably quicker. I know Piastri is as well. Difficult to overtake, of course. Again, we could get some chaos, which could help. I think they can score points. I think they can. They've got 2 cars up there, 6th and 9th. But I'd be surprised, a bit like Alex Albon a few weeks ago when I did that poll, I'd be surprised if Kevin Magnussen is still top 6 come the end of tomorrow, unless we do get utter chaos. How many seats are still free in 2024, asks Stig. Well, I've made a note of this. I can tell you exactly which ones are still available. So, Williams officially haven't signed up Logan Sargent for next year, although the noises seem to be they want to stick with him. That doesn't mean they will. That's the plan. And AlphaTauri have 2 seats, so everybody else is locked in. We are just waiting for confirmation on Williams' second seat, with obviously Alex Albon staying, and AlphaTauri and what they're going to do for next season. But as I said earlier, the chat seems to be sorry, just got a email from, never mind. The talk seems to be that it's going to be Ricciardo and somebody, but that could change because that wasn't the case a couple of weeks ago. We were talking about Ricciardo versus Lawson for that seat. Now we're talking about Tsunoda versus Lawson for the seat. So Joe Guan Yu, if you missed it, by the way. Oh, okay, right. So basically, the FIA having a day of reprimands. I think they have some spare paper, maybe, so they're going to go out some reprimands instead. So, first one for Max Verstappen, unnecessarily impeding cars exiting the pit lane, which was the one where he stopped at the green light. George Russell did what George Russell did, and every driver does, gets over the radio, and it's like, oh, should we stop there? And had a bit of a moan. The driver stated that he waited approximately 14 seconds to leave the pit exit in order to create a gap to the cars in front. Team representative explained that this gap was negated by turn 5 due to other cars slowing on the outlap, whilst the car behind car 1 had increased its gap to 12 seconds. Whilst no obvious advantage was gained by the driver in waiting at the pit exit for what is deemed to be an extraordinarily long time, the potential for this to negatively impact other drivers warrants a penalty. Whilst it is noted that the car behind could have overtaken car 1, it is preferable that cars depart the pit exit in an orderly manner. The stewards determined that car 1 breached Article 37.5 of the sporting regulations, and hence a penalty of a reprimand is appropriate. Look, I don't want Max to get a penalty. I want to see what we can do from 11th tomorrow, but don't dress a reprimand up as a penalty, for God's sake, because it is not a penalty. It's a, don't do that again, you'll be in trouble. It's not a penalty. And we've got another one, infringement. No, we'll do them in order. They've all coming. The next one, car unnecessarily impeding car 2 between turns 17 and 18, has gone exactly the way I thought it would. No further action because it was absolute chaos there, and I'm not going to blame Max for that because it was a right fustercluck. The driver of car 1, so that's Verstappen, stated that he was surrounded by many other cars on preparation laps, some of which chose to overtake him on the left and some on the right, and therefore he decided the safest option was for him to drive straight and keep the line, leaving a car width on his right. He stated he felt any movement to the left or right could have caused a collision with one of the cars around him. The stewards accept these statements. So the driver of car 2 stated he did not believe that car 1 was at fault, so that helps. That's Sargent saying it wasn't Max's fault. And there was room for him to pass. We therefore determined that car 1 did not unnecessarily impede car 2. And the final decision is an infringement again. They say, oh God, just say the names. I know they've got to be just say Tsunoda and Verstappen. Just prior to car 22 passing car 1, the driver of car 1 saw the car behind approaching and moved to the left. However, quite late. The team admitted that there was poor communication on its part and that it did not advise its driver until car 22 was alongside. The stewards reviewed a number of impeding and alleged impeding incidents from this current session, and consistent with previous decisions in relation to the severity of the breach, impose a penalty of a reprimand on the driver and a fine on the competitor. It was noted that the representatives of car 22 chose not to attend the hearing. Did they say penalty for... No, they didn't use the word penalty for... It's just... A reprimand is not a penalty. Look, to clarify, okay? If you pay attention to this channel, you know I do not want Max Verstappen to get a penalty, right? So I'm not saying that. What I'm saying is I don't like how they word things sometimes. It really annoys me because I've just read it there. Tried to be dramatic with, we impose a penalty of a reprimand. A reprimand isn't a penalty. A reprimand is a slap on the wrist. A reprimand is effectively pack it in or you're grounded. A penalty is you've got no pocket money. You know, that, you know, it's a grid drop. It's that, you know, I'm just really simplifying things there. But it's not that I want Max to get a penalty. I'm just being a real proper pedantic twat, quite frankly. That's all it is. I'm being pedantic. I know what they mean and why they word it that way, but a reprimand isn't a penalty. That's it. Were any reprimands awarded for poor livery? No. John says not happy with that one. A reprimand for that in the pit lane is absurd. again, I kind of take, and I don't often say this, I kind of take Ted Kravitz's way of thinking in that if you're going to slap a penalty on that now, where have the penalties been for the last however many races that's been happening and however many times it's happened over the weekend in practice? It's, I think a reprimand, what I would do as the FIA is I would reprimand Max today and then make it clear to drivers in the next driver's briefing that in future, that will be a penalty. Because they talk about wanting to be consistent, and they're talking in these decisions, they're saying things like, in line with what we've decided before and to be consistent with other decisions, then this is what we're doing. If that's the case, slapping a penalty on him now seems unfair when you've ignored, I know life isn't fair, but seems unfair when you've ignored it for so many weeks. But then again, having said that, 14 seconds is excessive, by the way. 14 seconds, I'm not denying that for a second. 14 seconds is excessive, but we've seen it throughout the season at times. So I think that's what if I was the FIA, and I'm not, thank God, we'd have nothing to talk about if me and Jonty were on the FIA, because we'd do things properly. That was a really arrogant statement, wasn't it? We'd know what we were doing. I don't mean it necessarily, but I would have just said, that's it. You've got to reprimand. But if this happens again, drivers, it's penalties. It's 5-second time penalties or a 3-place grid drop or whatever, just to make it clear that it's not acceptable going forward. But so to confirm, if you are just tuning in, Max Verstappen has 2 reprimands, one for impeding in the pit lane or a pit exit, and one for the impeding of car 22. So he was guilty, if you want to use that word, of both of those, but got reprimands. That is in line as well with the fact that Logan Sargent also got a reprimand for impeding car 18, Lance Stroll. He was, again, guilty, if you want to use that word, of that one. Got a reprimand, and there was no further action on the incident between Verstappen and Sargent between 17 and 18, which, again, I wholeheartedly agree with, because if it was just Max sat in the middle of the track like that and there were no other cars around him and that happened, yeah, slap him with a penalty. But, frankly, with all the messing about going on with the Ferraris, and I think there was a Mercedes in there, an Alpine, and they're just making themselves look really bloody amateur sometimes. All that going on, I'm not going to blame Max for that one. So, John T says the only precedent we have for intentionally preventing drivers from leaving the pit lane during qualifying is Hungary 2007. That was a 5-place drop. # grenade. Yeah. That's a bit... I still think I'm actually still surprised that was a penalty, actually. Not that I don't think it shouldn't have been, just because I think usually in those situations it's left to the team, isn't it, to sort out. But I can see why they did that, but I don't think that was a... I don't know. Nizam says reprimand for impeding sounds BS to me. I can't remember the last time. And there'll be somebody that pops up in the comments later and says, Monza. But I can't remember the last time off the top of my head we had reprimands for impeding, which is quite surprising. And that's for Sargent, for Verstappen, and everybody involved, really. But I'm also quite surprised that we haven't seen more investigated for that farting about between 17 and 18. But this is the FIA, so I'm not totally surprised. I'll read your thoughts on this one before we wrap up today, then. We're going to overrun ever so slightly, obviously, because of waiting for those decisions to come in. Carl says exactly perfect time to start using the penalties. Max nor Red Bull gives a shit ATM. Hearing both Max and Red Bull's interviews, they all about giving up on winning tomorrow, hoping for chaos. Jonathan said, if you've had 2 reprimands, surely that means the second should trigger an actual penalty, FFS. The rule is it's 10 for the season, isn't it? So if he gets 10, then he will get a penalty. You don't always get penalties. You don't always get reprimands for things you should get reprimands for. He says with a smirk on his face. That's his second. So that's his second of the season. Was the Sonoda one, and that was the second one that came in. So I assume the other one was the first of the season. It was. So he has 2. So he's got 8 more to get before he's going to get any kind of further penalty on that, which I believe is a 10-place grid drop. Yeah. 10-place grid drop. Oh, yeah, I know, John. I know we haven't got the information that we have now because it wasn't investigated, was it? So just for anybody listening later, Jonty said, Ted can say it's been happening, but we haven't seen nor heard about it yet. So we can only assume the length of time is the key factor. We don't have all the... This is the first one we've seen investigated, isn't it? So we can only assume how long, maybe when it's happened in the past, it's only been 8 seconds, and maybe if it's over 10 seconds, it triggers an investigation or something like that. So If a reprimand can be classed as a penalty, does that mean if you get 10, you can get penalised with another reprimand, says Warden? That's a very good point. I suppose technically, yeah, if a reprimand is classed as a penalty, maybe I don't know, let's pick a driver off that table there. Lando Norris gets 10 reprimands this season, and they punish him with a reprimand. But I assume that resets. April says, I want so much chaos tomorrow that Alonso wins, however much or little chaos that is. I'd love an Alonso win before the end of the season, because I think I picked a Alonso win as one of my results for this year that would guarantee to happen at some point. Let me just read this to you then. The final classification. So confirmed, your grid for tomorrow's Singapore Grand Prix. I nearly said Japanese Grand Prix then. That's next week, Sean. Carlos Sainz on pole from George Russell, Charles Leclerc, Lando Norris and Lewis Hamilton. That is your top 5. Kevin Magnussen, P6, Fernando Alonso, P7, Esteban Ocon, Nico Hulkenberg, and Liam, the legend, Lawson, rounds out the top 10. He didn't rule it out, he did it. Max Verstappen, P11, then it's Pierre Gasly, Sergio Perez, Alex Albon, Yuki Tsunoda, Valtteri Bottas, 16th, Oscar Piastri, 17th, then it's Logan Sargent, Zhou Guanyu, and Lance Stroll, although again, I am pretty sure Lance will be starting from the pit lane. In fact, before I wrap up, let's have a quick read here of what Lance Stroll says. So he's got his press release. Breathe, for God's sake, man. I'm frustrated as we have a big job in the garage and on the racetrack ahead of us. I was struggling for grip throughout the qualifying session. We had a bad outlap with traffic ahead of my final push, and we got stopped for the weighbridge. I started a couple of seconds behind Pierre Gasly, so it didn't play out the way we'd planned. When I saw my lap wasn't improving, I pushed really hard in the last corner to try and make up that extra time, and that's when it went wrong. Let's see what we can salvage tomorrow in the race. And Mike Crack, Mr. Crack, team principal of Aston Martin, says the only thing that matters today is that Lance is okay after the accident in qualifying. To see him step out of the car unaided, I don't know why I struggle with that word, is a testament to the FIA's constant work to improve safety. After some precautionary checks in the medical centre, he was cleared and released. Fernando progressed smoothly. Margins between all the teams are very tight. Fernando drove a clean and tidy lap in Q3. We'll work hard to progress forward in the race and bring home some points. So nothing there to officially say that they will have to build or rebuild Lance. Well, they will need to rebuild Lance's car, but you know what I mean. Whether they need to start from the pit lane tomorrow or not. So there you go. That's it from Aston Martin. Yeah, I think that's everything. And I'm just double checking the FIA page. Sorry for the pause, to make sure we've got everything in place. Yeah, all decisions are in. Yeah, because the provisional starting grid's through as well now, and the results through as well. So that is it. Just to confirm, if you are just tuning in, 2 reprimands for Max Verstappen, 1 for impeding Yuki Tsunoda, 1 for the impeding in the pit lane, nothing for the one on Sargent between 17 and 18, and Logan Sargent has a reprimand for impeding car 18. Maybe this is just an approach with the reprimands rather than time penalties or grid drops that the FIA are trying to get my hands off with these things, but that's that's a conversation for another day. Carl says, new to this channel, welcome mate, good to have you here. Says, can we expect a post Grand Prix waffle tomorrow after the race? You absolutely can. The race reaction I'll be live. So the race is at 1 UK time. Should be done by 3. So I'll be live around around the same time as today, 4:30 UK time, where we'll go through the entire field. It's a bit less it is still waffly. It's still me talking nonsense, which is what this channel's been built on, so fair enough. Giving my views on the race, but I will actually also make sure I run through the order P1 to P20 to make sure that everyone gets a mention, and we talk about the big points. I make a lot of notes for that. Some more boring and more comprehensive than others. So like poor Alfa Romeo, I'm determined tomorrow to make some notes for Alfa Romeo, because I never have notes for Alfa Romeo. I'll just quickly fly through chat and do some quick fire responses to any questions that have come in while I've been rambling away with these decisions, or any points that you want to make. And then I will be wrapping up in about 4 minutes. So Livo says, I don't know the fact that some of the impeding, like Max on Tsunoda, disallows Tsunoda to set a first time lap. It should be more than a reprimand. It's a good point. Yeah, fair point. It's one of the reasons you couldn't get a lap in, wasn't it, we believe? So it's affected his qualifying, hasn't it? But I don't know what they're going with this idea of reprimands for these things. I don't know if there's a change in procedure. They seem to think that this is in keeping with what we've seen in the past, but I can't think off the top of my head of any time we've seen this recently. But there you go. Lomster, or is it Lomster? Yeah, says looking like a very interesting race tomorrow. Definitely. Clansom, hey Clansom, says as long as Stroll doesn't have to crash to get Alonso to win. Indeed. Yeah, AJ says, of course, it's just a reprimand. One rule for Max, another rule for everybody else. Everybody else got a reprimand, mate. So I don't agree with that one at all. Max got a reprimand, but so did Sargent for his. So it's completely consistent. It's completely consistent with this weekend, but it's not. I'm not convinced it's totally consistent. Do you know what I'm going to do? Actually, I will do it before tomorrow's stream, and I can come back to this then. I will go back and check what the decisions were for other ones, because it's nothing to do with Max Verstappen. This for me, this is to do with the FIA saying this is in line with what they've done in the past, when I can't think of when that was. So, yeah. Anyway, it doesn't matter. He's 11th. AABB says conspiracy theory: Stroll crash today was practice for Crashgate version 2 tomorrow. Warder says Mike, who I love his name, but proves how immature I really am. Don't. That I've got so many outtakes of me trying to say Mike Crack, and it just especially there was one. Sorry, I'm going to finish after this because it's really immature and I'm sorry. There was one a few weeks ago. It was when they were having issues and they decided to try and find, I think it was a DRS issue, and they decided to use lubricant. You can see where this is going. Use lubricant to try and fix the issues, and I was trying to do this news report thing in the preview about Mike Crack and lubricant. It was, I swear to God. If I could find the raw audio, I might release the outtakes to patrons, because it's me at 37 crying like I'm 15. Because I just could not do it, and I had to rephrase things, and even then people pointing out it's stupid, I know. But it was silly. Red Raven says, better late than never. We'll watch it later. Hey, Red Raven. Good to see you, mate. I'm sure you'll be around tomorrow as well. But I think we're going to wrap this. What's the over-under on lizards incursions tomorrow? Says April. We'll end on that one. How many lizards will we get tomorrow? Let me know in chat. We've done the winner. We've done all of that business. How many lizards tomorrow on track? Fernando Alonso, by the way, apparently was the one who finished Larry off yesterday. Oh, Larry. Oh. Yeah. Bastard. That was bizarre. This is why you never name your F1 pets, all right? This is why you don't do it. So, yeah, poor Larry. May he rest in peace. Or pieces, as appeared to be the case. Warden records will get... Clancy records will get 4. Most of you saying so far between 1 and 2. Yes, Red Raven. So, yeah, it would be 2, wouldn't it? We're going to leave it there, though, before we start getting myself in trouble now. I've already talked about animals dying, so let's not get into that one. Let's see what kind of mood I'm going to be in for the rest of the night very quickly before I wrap things up. Football. Fixtures and results. Foul. Lovely. That's the mood Sean's be for the rest of the night one. That is it for this one then. Thank you so much to everyone who's tuned in for the post-quali waffle. I know they're very waffly, but with that, a lot of people come at me and say, I don't like it when you waffle, but with respect, the clue is in the title of the stream, so you should have expected it. But it's always good. Thank you very much for your support. Thank you for your super chats as well. Thank you to Stefan as well for your PayPal contributions. Massively appreciate your support. I will be back tomorrow, again around about 4:30 UK time, somewhere around there, with the race reaction. It looks like we are in for a cracking race tomorrow, which could be absolutely brilliant. And lots to talk about, hopefully. Whatever happens, I think there'll be lots to talk about tomorrow. So, very much looking forward to that one. Don't forget to follow me on social media. Follow at F1 Word on Twitter. You can follow me F1 Word as well on Instagram for what it's worth. And on the F1 Word on Facebook. And if you'd like to follow XPB Images on Twitter, feel free. I'm not going to say any more than that. At XPB Images F1, I believe it is. I'll double check for you while you're there. Definitely give them a follow. Lots of great images going out on there. At XPB Images. They provide the images for the stream. So shout out to them. Give them a follow. That's all I'm saying. But I'll be back tomorrow. I will be back tomorrow. Thanks for everybody who's dropped a like as well. Please leave a like before you go. 263 still here. 134 likes so far. Let's get to 150. That'd be amazing. And thank you for your continued support as always. But as ever, that's a long outro. Thank you for watching. I've been Sean. This has been the F1 Word, and until next time, goodbye.